Hello, everyone, and welcome. We're giving everyone a few seconds to join. Great. I see that people are joining. So we can go to the next slide as I see more people coming in. Just wanted to thank you, all of you, for following us. I know many of you follow us on the live webinar, and we also have many more people following the recording. So thank you so much again for everything that you do to support this trial. And we're really excited to be here on a weekly basis to provide you with updates. Next slide. So tonight, I'm really excited to have a guest speaker and someone who really works close to us in the Boston area, Hilda Gutierrez from Beth, Israel, Deaconess Medical Center. That's another major hospital in the Boston area. We're really fortunate to have her and her team, and she'll give a quick introduction to her team when she joins. But before that, we want to go ahead and share a few updates as always. So if we can go to the next slide. For tonight, again, I know many of you have asked us to provide updates in terms of which sites are active and how many participants are being enrolled for regimens F and G, which are the ones that are enrolling right now. And we want to provide you with those updates right now. So if you can go to the next slide. First of all, I want to tell you that as we learn more about everything that we are doing, as we continue to learn from this trial, we're also committed to sharing updates with all of you. So we published our first article in 2021. It's available open access. So if you want to learn more about how the trial is designed and learn more about kind of how this works, I know that in the first few webinars that we gave, we were kind of going over the structure, the design. But now, for many of you who have been following us for a long time, that obviously are all familiar with it. So for those of you who are new, I would highly encourage you to read this paper. You can get it for free online, and you can follow the QR code and the link, because this paper really describes kind of the design of the platform trial and why platform trials are important, not only in ALS, but also in general to accelerate drug development. So feel free to look at the paper for more background information. Next slide. And if you can go to the next slide, we can actually go and tell you more about the updates for today. So as of today, we're continuing to make progress in terms of participant enrollment. These are the numbers. As many of you know already, because you've been following us for a long time, and for those of you who are new, as the paper explains, we have a process, a flow for participants to kind of flow from the first initial consent and screening process, where they consent to the platform trial itself, and then participants are then assigned to a specific regimen. So in this case, regimen F. So it's a multi-step process. And this is why we have screened over 100 people right now, and we have 76 that have actually received drug. And this is because the other people are still kind of going through the screening procedures. But certainly, we hope that these numbers will continue to increase, and especially kind of the number to watch is the one at the bottom. Right now we are at 76, and those are the people who have started to receive drug already. And we are aiming to enroll over 200 participants. So certainly we have room to grow. For those of you who may have been following us for a long time, the initial regimens A, B, C, D, and E, were enrolling 160 participants each. For regimen F and G, we're actually aiming at the larger sample size, and this is because the standard of care and kind of, the way we treat ALS right now has changed in 2022 with the approval of a few drugs. And therefore, again, to account for that, we had to increase the sample size. So the regimens right now, F and G, are larger than previous regimens that you may have heard about in the past. Next slide. And so we have 58 sites that are currently active for regimen F. We're enrolling a few more. We continue. I'm sorry, we're activating a few more. We continue to activate new regimens, and that's because even if all the more sites, even if all sites are part of the network, they need to be trained specifically for new regimens as they become available. And that's why we are working hard to really activate all sites. We're hoping to get to over 60 sites, almost 70 sites for Regimen F, and we continue to make progress. So if you are looking for a site near you, please check the map, the QR code, and our website gets updated with a list of active sites for Regimen F. So we started this process a few weeks ago, and so again, the idea is to activate all sites within a few weeks, and so certainly we're getting there for F, and we'll keep you posted on that. Next slide. So for G started more recently, and that's why the numbers are a little bit lower here. But again, we continue to make progress. So right now we have 14 people who have been randomized within Regimen G so far. And if you can go to the next slide, I want to mention that for now, we have 18 sites active for Regimen G, but the plan is for all of the sites that are already active on Regimen F to also become activated for Regimen G. And the only reason why we only have 18 for G is because we started more recently. We issued the press release when we started enrolling for G, and so that's the only reason why we have fewer sites. But again, we're working very hard to be able to add all the remaining sites so that in just a few weeks we expect all sites to be active for both F and G. And again, there should be a little over 60 sites. So certainly plenty of sites available across the country. Really, we're trying to bring the trial as close as possible to where people live. And as I said earlier, each regimen now is larger than the previous regimens. And so essentially now we're targeting 240 individuals per regimen, which means really hundreds of spots for people with ALS who are interested in participating in research. So please spread the news. Please let other people know that we're definitely looking for participants. And if you can go to the next slide, that's kind of the screenshot of our website where you can find information about the sites that are recruiting for either F or G. Next slide. And we do have a webinar planned for Regimen G. We have this for every regimen, and G being the newest addition. We're planning this webinar to really talk about the science and all the excitement about sort of the scientific rationale for the drug that's being tested in Regimen G. So please don't miss this webinar. It's going to be at the same time as this regular weekly webinar. In just a few weeks, it's going to be on July the 20th. It's a little bit longer because we want to give the scientists enough time to be able to explain really the deep science that's behind Regimen G. And also we want to give everyone an opportunity to ask questions. And we're going to have a number of scientists who have been involved directly in the development of this drug from Denali. So please don't miss this webinar. We do have scientific webinars about each of the drugs that have been included in the platform trial so far. They're all being recorded and they're all available on our website. And again, the only drug that we don't have yet is Regimen G, but we're going to have the webinar very soon. So I'm really excited about that. Next slide. And for those of you who are new to this field, I do want to mention that both our team and our partners at the NEALS Consortium are working hard to really provide valuable information in terms of the science, the statistics, a number of important clinical topics that I think are important to know for everyone who's interested in ALS research. And so the slide here shows the link to the recording of a fantastic webinar that some of our colleagues have given over the last few weeks. So I would highly encourage you to take a look at this webinar. We had our statisticians on this weekly series as well. And I think every time we have the statisticians really help us understand really the scientific and statistical aspects of the trial. It's really always well received because these are very important topics. So I would encourage you to browse the list of webinars, educational webinars that are available to the NEALS Consortium and this particular webinar that's on the slide right now. Next slide. And as always, please feel free to contact Catherine and Alison, who are both here today. We have a QR code on the slide to register for this webinar and also to sign up for the ALS link, which is our newsletter. So if you want to have some more information about our research and receive the information directly at your inbox, please sign up for the ALS link. We have a full schedule of webinars with lots of guest speakers coming over the next few weeks. So next week, actually, we're going to have Dr. Cho from Calico, that's the regimen partner for Regimen F. We already had a scientific webinar to talk about the drug that's been tested in Regimen F. I would say that was incredibly well received. I think it was the webinar that had the most views, over, I think, 1,500 views or something like that. Really great webinar. And because of that, we want to have Dr. Cho and colleagues come back again and offer another opportunity for people to also ask more questions. So please don't miss the webinar next week. I know it's a holiday week, but if you can join us again, same time, same day, Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern, Dr. Cho and a number of other colleagues, a number of scientists from Calico will be available to answer your questions and again, talk more about the science regarding the drug that's been tested in Regimen F. And the following week, we're going to have a guest speaker from Ohio State University. Sarah Heinzman has really been a fantastic partner, and I really want to for you to know, to get to know her and her site. And then the following week, again, we will have the Regimen G webinar. Again, more scientific news, which I think is going to be great. I know that we're going to have just a couple of webinars that we're going to cancel over the summer due to summer travel. We'll provide the schedule next week. And with that, I was hoping to then introduce our guest speaker, if this is a good time. Hilda Gutierrez, thank you so much for being here. We love working with you and your site just across town in Boston. Really great to have more than one opportunity for the trial to be available in the Boston area. So without further ado, I just wanted to ask you to introduce yourself and tell us more about you and your team. And for people who are interested in enrolling in the trial, who they should contact to connect with your team. Hilda?
Thank you, Dr. Paganoni. Thank you for the introduction. Yes, so my name is Hilda Gutierrez. I'm one of the coordinators at the Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center, also called BI or BIDMC in the Boston area. I am very happy and grateful to have the opportunity to be a guest speaker in these webinars, to share a little bit of my experience of this trial. Well, my experience in the HEALEY ALS trial started on day 0, as I like to call it. I remember being on one of our annual meetings in the NEALS meeting, the Northeastern ALS Consortium in Florida. And I remember Lindsay Pothier mentioning this upcoming new HEALEY ALS trial. And I remember thinking explicitly, oh, this seems big, and I can only hope. I remember that word. And a few weeks later, or a few actually months later, NGH reached out to start the onboarding process, and we began. And a few months later, COVID struck. We were sent home. We were sent home to work, and it was a bit difficult because we were used to just seeing patients face to face, and we're handling or helping them. And all of a sudden, we were sent home. And I can tell you, I did not know how lucky I was to just have 2 screens to work with until I was forced to use my laptop and to be on Zoom conference on a daily basis. But with the help of Dr. Suba Rutkov, who was back then the lead investigator, Dr. Connie McElduff, and myself, we were able to pull our site through. And we were just 3 back then. And COVID remains, and then we were working again at the lab, and we began screening and seeing patients again, and it felt wonderful. And I remember the word hope, and this trial has the word hope printed all over it. Every time that a new drug, a new regimen appeared and closed, I truly felt that we were close to our goal and that we were doing something for our patients. I'm very thankful to be part of the trial, to have the opportunity to just see patients and to help them reach our goals. And I don't know if you know, but there's a massive team behind the scenes, and I am proud and grateful to be learning from them each day. and from my team, which has grown now. Dr. Courtney Matalov now is the lead investigator. Dr. Suwa Rutkov is the sub-investigator. Soleil Saman is also part of our team, and she's, as of now, the study coordinator. And starting tomorrow, she will be the lead coordinator in our site, as I am sadly leaving, because I will be starting residency on Saturday, so I have to move. It's a bittersweet moment because I'm very excited about my future, but also I will stop seeing our patients. And I'm sure it happens to all the coordinators. We form a bond with them because we are basically family here at the hospital. We see it on our visits. We call them to see how are they doing. If they have a problem, they call us back. So it feels really like family, and it feels like we are leaving them in a way. But also I'm happy because we have an excellent team from our study nurse, who is Diane Healy, like the name of the Healy trial, but spelled different. It's just a coincidence. And the new coordinator who is getting on board, Sarah Verga. I know that our patients will be in great hands, and I can only say how happy and grateful to be part of this team. Dr. Paganoni, Dr. Sukovich, Catherine, everybody, we can tell since day one, they have put their heart and soul on this trial, on these webinars, and on our meetings, on our site meetings as well. You can see the effort, and we are not working because of you. We're working with you and for you, and we are doing this happy, and we are grateful and of how resilient you are. And well, that's all I have to say. Just a big thank you from the bottom of my heart for this opportunity, from learning from this amazing team. And our patients have our contacts, and also Catherine. But please rest assured that we will not let you down. And thank you again.
Thank you, Hilda. It's been so great to really work with you and your team over the last 3 years now. And so best of luck to you. I'm very happy that your team continues to grow. And for people who are in the Boston area, again, we have a team at MGH, but also a team at BI, but Israel. And so we really want to do everything that we can to enroll as many people as possible. So if you're having, if you have questions about, getting, enrolled in this area, please don't hesitate to reach out to either our team at MGH, the Israel team, or Catherine and Allison, so that we can really try to facilitate enrollment. Also, people who are not normally seen at these clinics, if you live in the area and want to participate, that's definitely possible. So don't hesitate to reach out. Again, enrollment is really our top priority. The sooner we enroll, obviously, the sooner we will know if drugs F and G work. And so thank you so much again for everything you're doing. I know we are getting a few questions. Yeah, thank you. We are getting a few questions from the audience. Alison, can you help us take them?
Absolutely. Thank you, Hilda, too. First question for you, Dr. Paganoni. Is there any other regimen planned for the HEALEY trial after F and G?
Yes, we're already working with an industry partner in particular on the design of the new regimen. We're going to announce it as soon as the contracts are finalized, because again, we want to make sure that we announce only regimens that will happen for sure, so that people can really fully read and understand and learn about them. And so again, we are in the design phase for regimen H, and then certainly we are in conversations with other partners who may join us in 2024.
Wonderful. Could you briefly comment on the EIF2B activators pipeline in CNS disorders, such as a potential therapy called EDT8683?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really a hot target in the sense that there's great science about this target, which is the same target that's being tested in regimens F and G. So I just want to make sure that people know that, it's incredibly important to test as many drugs as possible that target this particular mechanism, because it seems to be so critical. And that's why we're so excited to have not one, but two drugs that target it. And so we have kind of, more chances of really looking at this from different angles. There are also other molecules with the same mechanism in development. Again, that just speaks to the the fact that this target is really important, and so hopefully we'll be able to see good results, and that's why we really want to enroll in these regimens as quickly as possible.
Perfect. And with the increased enrollment numbers, in light of additional standards of care, will you be able to identify whether there are synergistic or detrimental effects between multiple concurrent therapies?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Well, definitely, we are allowing standard of care. That means that we're going to have in the trial, we're going to have people who are, for example, on Riluzole, Radicava, and Relivrio in different combinations. Some people may be, for example, on Riluzole and Radicava, but not Relivrio, and other people may be on all three, for example. And so we stratify at the beginning of the trial. This is why it's very important for people to make those decisions ahead of time. In other words, people can definitely feel free to take, any of all of these drugs. It's important that this decision is made before the beginning of the trial. If they do so, then we can stratify. And what that means is that we give active and placebo to equal number of people, kind of balancing the background medication. So we're going to have, for example, the same number of people on active and placebo that are on the Relivrio, and the same number of people on active and placebo that are not on Relivrio. So this is important because that if you equalize or balance the background medications, meaning the standard of care medications, then you can start to do more meaningful subgroup analysis, which I think is what sort of the question was alluding to. Can you really try to look at whether people are doing better, for example, with a combination of 3 drugs than only 1 drug, for example. And so while this particular trial is not meant to test standard of care medications, and so that's not the goal of the trial, but by having a balance in terms of background medications, we can start to really layer the new drugs on top of that and start to look at potential for interaction. So again, it's not the primary goal of the trial, but certainly something, it's a large scale trial where we're going to have a lot of accumulated knowledge and a lot of opportunities to learn.
Wonderful. Could Dr. Paganoni, could 2 drugs that have the same target still have different effects? So for example, regimens F and G, is there a chance they'll work differently in the body?
Yeah, we don't know. These are brand new drugs. These are, drugs that are targeting sort of a brand new and yet very important, very exciting mechanism. And so we really need to see how this drug works. When drugs have been on the market for many, many years, right? There are some drugs that could be very similar, like, as you may have heard, for example, once the statin medication for cholesterol were first developed, after many, many years, then all these statins started to all look alike. But that took years to happen, right? So this was not at the very beginning. So once a mechanism and a type of drug is established, then you can make a number of look-alike or feel-alike drugs, right? But at the very beginning, when you have a brand new mechanism, you cannot take that for granted. In fact, we do need to test each drug individually against placebo and really be able to fully evaluate the totality of the evidence for each drug. That's why, they're separate. They're completely separate drugs, and each needs to be evaluated independently.
I know we're at the hour, but we have a few more questions I'm going to try to get through with you very quickly, Dr. Paganoni. Why does the FDA only use healthy volunteers in a phase 1 trial?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Sure. The question is, why would the FDA, or I guess a drug sponsor, actually only use healthy volunteers in a phase 1 trial instead of people with ALS?
There's no written rule. It can be either or a combination. I would say that historically, when in general in medicine, I'm not talking about ALS drug development. In general, in medicine, historically, oftentimes there's been healthy volunteers being tested in phase 1 trials because typically, and again, I'm just making very general statements. Typically, when you have a first-in-human drug, the level or the intensity of the monitoring in a phase 1 trial can be quite burdensome for somebody who has a disease. So, for example, there are some drugs, and again, I'm just saying in general, in the history of medicine, where the initial phase 1 study required, for example, being in a so-called phase 1 unit where you spend, for example, a week in the hospital or in the phase 1 unit where they do a number of things. They monitor you kind of, 24/7 or things like that. Now, as different drugs are developed, kind of, a more modern, I guess, techniques have emerged, and now it's possible also at times to do some of these initial phase 1 studies in people with the disease, depending again on the specific mechanism of the drug and what type of safety monitoring is required. So again, there isn't a rule about only using healthy volunteers or only using the drug, patients. It can be a combination of both. It depends really on whether this is truly a first-in-human drug, and whether what the characteristics of the drug are. Are there concerns about safety, etc.? What type of monitoring is required? It really depends on the drug.
Wonderful. And do you have any update on an EAP for regimen F?
So we can actually ask the company next week. I think they're coming, and as well as the company for G when they come on the 20th. And again, we always ask our industry partners to provide options for EAPs. And so I think when companies are ready, certainly we have the mechanism and the network to make that happen.
Final question, I promise. Can you further explain if NFL data on regimen C, the clean product, is reason for the company to file an NDA?
So this is obviously up to the company because, as discussed in the past, we do this phase 2 trial in partnership with companies with the goal of providing them with a lot of information about their drug so that then they can make the regulatory decisions whether they can, apply for the new drug or go to phase 3 testing or what other options they might have. So what I would say is that the trial that we are running is accumulating a lot of data. And I think we discussed that in the past. We're accumulating an enormous amount of biomarker data from different angles for every regimen. We're talking of genetics, we're talking of neurofilaments, we're talking of digital biomarkers, etc. And it's actually, we continue to learn. So believe me, when actually thank you, Hilda, for saying that, we have a lot, going on in terms of really in the background, a lot's going on in the background. We continue to learn because just the volume of data that we are continuing to receive, even from completed regimens, is really massive. And that's good in the sense that, we continue to learn about these drugs. And so we share all of that with industry partners, and then, they can decide and discuss with regulators what the data means really in terms of practical next step for the drug. So we're certainly excited to continue to do all of these analyses. Many of them actually depend on vendors, as you may imagine, because many of these biomarkers kind of go out to vendors, and then again, we're continuing to work hard on the analysis, and sometimes things happen over a certain period of time, again, because there needs to be time for the vendors to do all these analyses on hundreds and hundreds of samples and then analyze the results. So we continue to provide all this data to the partners so that they can then see what options they have.
That's wonderful. Okay, I think we've got through all the questions. So thank you, Hilda and Dr. Paganoni. I'll turn it over to you for any final comments.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And just wanted to thank Hilda and the entire team at BI really for being another great site in the Boston area. And again, for anyone, I know, Hilda, you're leaving us, but you will leave us with a great team at BI. So we certainly have lots of options for enrollment in the trial in the Boston area, even for people who don't live here, if they're willing to travel and be able to participate. So if you're interested in participating, please don't hesitate. Right now we have, again, plenty of sites, plenty of spots, including sites like ours that are willing to accept, for example, in the Boston area, people who may need to travel here. So don't hesitate to reach out. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.